My name is Jay, and I'm presenting this video in seeking to reveal the truth to the world about the rise of the Antichrist. And the key thing to keep in mind with regard to who I am is my birthmark, which you can see right there. It's a diamond-shaped birthmark, and what it represents is how I died in my past life. With regard to reincarnation and birthmarks, just YouTube that or check out the video playlist I made of reincarnation videos. I think it might be evident what I'm implying or what's implied by that birthmark. You can go to my blog at spiritoftruthblog.com and look up Nails of the Cross for a blog on that topic. And the rest of the video you need to watch to see what's going on.
For Russian Orthodox believers, this is one of their most important rituals. Epiphany celebrates the baptism of Christ in the River Jordan. In the icy water, which has been blessed by priests, people immerse themselves 3 times, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost.
By doing this, we are purifying the body and soul of all sins. This baptism is really important for me. It's like a rebirth.
It was a marginal tradition in Soviet times, but is making a powerful comeback. This year, 100,000 people took part in Moscow alone, double the turnout of last year.
People feel that only their faith can help them live and overcome the difficulties they face. This feeling of security and rediscovered strength means that more and more people are turning towards religion.
In a state that's officially secular, the Church has played a dominant role. Its patriarch Kirill almost has the status of a head of state. A figure of constant public attention, his masses are broadcast live on state TV. Kirill is also a close associate of Vladimir Putin, but he does appear to be distancing himself from him. After the wave of anti-Kremlin protests, he spoke out for the first time.
For the Church, this question has become very important, because amongst the faithful, there are people who took part in these protests, as well as people who were the target of these protests. If the authorities ignore them, it would be a very bad sign, signaling their inability to adapt and to correct their mistakes.
Above all, he condemned voter fraud that marred a recent parliamentary election, calling it a lie that contradicted the Church's values. For this historian, there's nothing surprising about his reaction.
In the texts which govern relations between the Church and the state, there is a clause. If the authorities trample upon the rights of the people, the Church reserves the right to react and to even call for civil disobedience.
Things have not yet got to that stage, but priests are increasingly trying to distance themselves from United Russia, the ruling party. Father Vsevolod, an official spokesman for the Church, is one such priest. In his parish, he's advocating dialogue with the opposition and has just suggested that an Orthodox party be set up.
We sense this need at the heart of Russian society. People are sick of politics being bogged down in corruption. They want a fairer state and more morality in politics. For that, us believers are going to speak out more and more on politics, the economy, social relations, and everything else demanding more fairness.
His solution is to allow priests to play an active role in the country's politics and even to run in elections. It's an idea that the Patriarch's office is studying carefully.
And I'm now joined from Moscow by the Daily Telegraph's bureau chief, Andrew Osborne. Hello, Andrew. Now, 25 years ago, the Russian Orthodox Church wasn't a force to be reckoned with when the Soviet Union still existed. But now, just how influential is the Church in modern Russia?
That's right. I mean, in the Soviet era, its influence was virtually nil, but it really has in the last 2 decades, since the 1991 fall of the Soviet Union. It really has staged a remarkable renaissance. It's very influential. It's very powerful. Patriarch Kirill, the head of the church, is often pictured alongside Vladimir Putin, the Prime Minister, or President Dmitry Medvedev. and it pronounces on pretty much every walk of life, and millions of Russians listen very closely to what it has to say.
So it's very influential. Just how unusual is it then for it to speak out effectively against the Kremlin, and might we see a break with the Kremlin even?
It's unprecedented, really, for it to speak out against the Kremlin. In the past, it's been very, very close to the Kremlin, very supportive of all of the Kremlin policies. It goes out of its way to be supportive, almost slavishly so, and particularly supportive of Mr. Putin himself. So it's incredibly unusual. Will we see a break? I mean, we're not there yet. That seems unlikely in a way. One of the theories about why this is happening, why they're doing this, is actually that it's pragmatism. That they've seen that the wind is changing. Tens of thousands of people, as we heard in the report, are coming onto the streets. They don't want to find themselves behind the public mood. And the other theory actually is that the Kremlin wants to kind of try to diffuse public anger, and is actually using the church to help do that. That means that they actually want the church to kind of, if you like, take the side of the protesters, at least partially.
The recent recrudescence of something very sinister and very menacing, that is to say, despotism of the old form in Russia, one-party rule, KGB rules, KGB standards for the treatment of dissent, for the treatment of the press, for the treatment of opposition politicians, for the treatment of neighboring countries as far distant as Georgia and Chechnya and Latvia and Lithuania. The return, in other words, of what used to be called Great Russian chauvinism under Putin and Medvedev is accompanied by something that was always the accompaniment of Great Russian Tsarist tyranny and, by the way, Stalinist tyranny before. Over the shoulder of the dictator stands, every time you see it, the black cowled figure of the Russian Orthodox bishop, claiming, as they do now, and as they're freely granted by Putin and Medvedev, exclusive right to be the state church. No other Christian church is allowed even to recruit or proselytize in Russia, let alone a Jewish or Islamic force. Not allowed at all. When Medvedev takes his oath of office as president, he takes it with an archbishop holding an icon up for him to kiss. You may remember that in the very strong field of stupid remarks made by President Bush, probably the stupidest, this is a very competitive selection, was his meeting with Vladimir Putin, where he said, as soon as he saw that he was wearing his grandmother's crucifix, he could look into his eyes and know that he was a sincere and decent man. Doesn't anyone here feel a moan of shame that any American president could make such a statement and be so uncritically received for it? Because to use the word faith is always to use the word as if it was a positive. And see what we've helped to baptize in Russia now, another form of Tsarism, anti-Semitism, chauvinism, police dictatorship, with baptizing it, the Russian Orthodox Church. This is a decision with which we will feel a strong sense of dissent and regret and remorse for many years to come in my submission.
But people in this country, they don't want to hear. We are too busy shopping and having fun in this country. Oh, it's all so unpleasant. World War III. Now, what is unpleasant is that if what I'm saying is true, within 5 years, most of the people in this room will be dead. This is April Fool's Day, but this isn't an April Fool's joke. This is serious. Now, if I'm wrong about this, I'm wrong in a big way. But I've been researching this for a lot of years, and I've talked to a lot of people in government, in intelligence work, and I've heard some things that fit together so perfectly. They connect the dots on this. There is the work of Anatoly Golitsyn, KGB defector, who said that Russia was planning a spectacular collapse to change their system, to bring liberalism and democracy, but as a deception, to disarm the West psychologically and militarily, and to prepare the way for a sudden turning of the tables He called it a weakness in strength dialectic. It comes from Sun Tzu. When you are strong, you appear weak. When you are weak, you want to appear strong. Hold out baits to entice the enemy, feign disorder, and then crush him. It is amazing that through to the late 1990s, Russia continued to build nuclear-proof underground cities. One under Yamato Mountain that is as large as Washington, D.C. It is believed to house missile and atomic factories. It is more than 1,000 feet under the ground, cannot be even reached by tunneling missiles. There are tunnels so massive that come out from this complex. There are 4 railroad tracks wide. And Russia has railroad mobile ICBMs. They have mobile ICBMs, a weapon that we don't even have. And you cannot count these because they can be hidden in caves, they can be hidden in tunnels, and you don't know how many they have. We know from spying on Russia for years that they developed an arsenal of some 10 to 20,000 strategic nuclear weapons, 20,000 tactical nuclear weapons, which they still possess. We have not to this day had an accounting of where these weapons were, whether they were destroyed, and there are many experts in Washington who are troubled by this. I believe that America, because of the unwariness in this country, is going to be attacked and overwhelmed at the outset of this war. I don't believe we're going to lose it, because I believe that Russia is a very weak country. China is a very weak country, despite their numbers. And that's why they use deception. Throughout the Cold War, Russia never had a chance against the United States of America. That's why they turned to this strategy. They realized that they would be destroyed in a war. So they had to use proxy attack methods, deception, long-term deception, and they had to try to change their system to make it more workable because the Stalin system was not workable.
A concluding thought. William Butler Yeats wrote a poem called The Second Coming, and the first lines of this poem are suggestive. He wrote, "Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world, the blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are filled with passionate intensity. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand."